that was a story just I had, and this story also was not like publicized, you know, to many people. I heard that the child was, you know, raping the mother because the mother was suspected to have killed the father of the boy, and she was like, you know, behaving loosely. So the boy said, you know, come on, you know, this is the reason why you killed my father. I will show you that I'm also a man. So in that situation, the mother ran away, you know. But all these things are taking place because, you know, sin has taken roots in the hearts of people, and you know, these are just, you know, the fruits of what is going on in their hearts, you know. So if we can be able to uproot, you know, sin in the hearts of people, I'm very sure, you know, then the society could be clean, and even such things, you know, may not be a sin.
The feeling that I get is that the fear of God should be in all of us, in the society. And maybe if psychologically we could look at it, you know, Kate, what leads a person to, you know, I would like you to kind of walk us through, you know, the mind of this abuser. The thing that leads this person to even abuse his or her own biological son or daughter. What leads them to that extent, psychologically speaking?
What happens to a child who has been sexually molested all their lives, and they have been traumatized all their lives during their childhood? When they grow up, what happens is they disconnect with that spiritual bit. So it does not respond to them. Because where were you when this was happening? Those are the questions that we'll get with most of the victims when they're angry. Where was God when this was happening to me?
Or they feel like God had abandoned them.
Yeah. So everyone that they would have trusted at that particular moment, including the parent who was not abusing them, failed them, and they become very bitter. And they can either project that bitterness inwardly or outwardly. Inwardly by self-hate, and if they self-hate themselves, they will have no regard for any other human being. The mind of this person who's abusing, I could try and walk it. One of the fathers of psychology, he's called Freud, he said, when we are born, we identify with the opposite sex parent. So if I'm a girl, I will identify with my father, and I'll be jealous over my mother.
Sure.
And if I'm a boy, I will identify with my mother and jealous over my father. So you'll find that when the family is growing up, the girls are more closer to their fathers.
Yeah, closer to the father than the mother.
And the boys are more closer to the mother than the father.
Yeah, true.
In the most extreme scenarios that this father of psychology came up with is if the boy who identifies with the mother and is jealous over the father can even want to get rid of the father so that he can have that space with the mother. Now with the head of this abuser, most of the time you'll find that some of them were actually sexually abused or had a traumatic experience in their childhood. It just doesn't happen. It's a learned behavior. So the first caregiver, it doesn't matter whether it was the mother, the father, or a house help, or a relative, those caregivers around this child feed into that mindset and plant seeds of that kind of behavior. Then what we say happens is insufficient self-control. Yes, we are all animals, but we are different from the beast because we have the conscious. But if the conscious is dead, there's no turning back until it's awakened. For such a case, it's a sexual dysfunction, that this person is only attracted to younger people. We have zeroed in on girls, but we also have boys who have been sexually molested.
Sure.
You'll find that pedophilias have a sexual dysfunction that they can't be aroused by a grown woman. They can only be aroused by this small child, because when they were small, like I was saying earlier, that their caregiver showed them this is the correct way. But this is the unconscious, this is the subconscious that is behaving that way. Consciously, he may not have wanted to be what the parents was. He may not have wanted to be the abuser. But because he never healed or she never healed, that stays with them. Until that healing process comes and the behavior is corrected, the person might change. But if the healing doesn't take place, if an abused child grows up, high chances are they will abuse.
Maybe if I just come back to Tim before I go to Pastor. Now, the possible legal avenues that we have, the immediate legal action that we should take in the process of saying to it that we bring to an end this, after this act has taken place, as a lawyer and someone who stands for the rights of women and children, what would you advise people who experience such things at home? The first thing they need to do when they know there is such a case amongst them.
Immediately the sexual act occurs, and particularly to the vulnerable people, looking at the children in this category, the first point of action for them that they need to do is obviously they need to report. Now, as they seek to report, there are different avenues that they can be able to utilize the same because of their safety. You can have like a confidant, somebody you feel that you're very, very close to and cannot let you down in terms of how you seek to report, because they can facilitate you towards going to report to the respective authorities. Sure. In the closest area within, especially within a community, there is the office of the provincial administration of the chief, and the chiefs are people who I do train together with event police on aspects to do with prosecution of matters of this kind and how to facilitate towards access to justice. Now, beyond the chief's office, you can go to the police. Now, you're going to the police because you're seeking justice, because you need the perpetrator apprehended. On the other hand, obviously, when this act has also occurred, you also need to go to the hospital, to any medical facility, for purposes of seeking any necessary assistance that needs medical examination, and that might need you to maybe be given a form of drug. Because, for example, if someone has penetrated, then possibilities of, if, for example, no contraceptive was used, you need to be given an emergency contraceptive to avoid you from getting a baby. On the other hand, for example, if someone was infected with HIV, there's also a period that you can be able to also access, and in the hospitals, they do administer and give out PEP, which stands for post-exposure prophylaxis, seeks to prevent you from getting the same. Now, from that, then you'll either get like referrals from institutions that we have worked with very closely, and for us as an organization that is called CREW, being a human rights organization, we do facilitate and represent children and women freely on aspects to do with sexual offenses.
Thank you very much, Tim. Now, Pastor, maybe briefly, to wind up for us, what would you say about this case, and what response should be there from, you know, a religious perspective or a moral perspective?
These people who are involved in such cases, they need to get some spiritual counseling, in that they should be able to know the state of their heart, first of all, the thing which is dragging their minds, that which came into their hearts so that they could not even have a self-control, and they couldn't, protect, rather they harmed the people they were supposed to love and protect and embrace, in their hearts, A father should embrace her daughter, but now it comes to a point whereby, the father is now the wolf, and the psychologists are calling it a pathological case. And I think, this father should be able to know, look, this is the way your heart is, and, when you throw away that heart of yours, you receive a new heart in you. Then you will be a father, and you will be a husband, and you will be, what you are meant to be by God.
Finally, Catherine, very brief, the healing process in this case, how do we go about it?
The first thing is to report, as the lawyer said. Secondly is to assess, because chances are, when they come for sessions, you want to know how stable they are. So when you assess, we assess for things like depression, the effects of trauma, is this person able to access what you're telling them when we do cognitive behavioral? Because if they're not stable, they cannot move forward. So when we assess, in case of depression, in case of anxiety, uncontrollable anxiety, we engage a psychiatrist so that they can get medication. Sure. After we stabilize them, the next thing now is to change the mindset. Change the mindset, first and foremost, it was not my fault. I did nothing wrong, I was wronged. Second and foremost, forgive. Because before they forgive, they cannot trust. Then rebuilding the trust again by creating avenues where this person can trust. Now for the family too, they need to go through the same process. They need to accept what has happened as opposed to shoving it under the table, because that's what normally happens. And deep emotions are never talked about. They need to talk about it as we talk about grief. Then the next person is the abuser. As much as there are legal repercussions to it, because they have done what is not right, even this person too needs to go through the same process. They need to do their own work and dig the genesis of why they behave the way they do, because that's the only way they'll have awareness. And we say to be aware is to be alive. If they're aware, then they can change, and an open mind. Because another thing people think when we go sit down with a pastor or a counselor, what are they helping me with? I just talk. That talking is very necessary in the healing process, because it gets it out of your system. If it stays in your mind, it's toxic, and we say the subconscious does not sieve. So this person needs to talk about it as often as possible. And finally, aware that this person can also heal once they have done their work is to help other people, like what the family did. Reaching out to other people going through the same thing is also a healing process. Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys, for joining us today and helping us on this discussion. I know it really means a lot to our viewers back there at home, because there are people who are going through the same. They do not know, which way to go. Is it the spiritual? Is it the psychological? Is it the legal? All these factors are important towards healing and also towards handling this kind of case. So thank you very much for your contribution. Well, viewer, we have come to the end of our discussion today. Now, if you have any comments, suggestions, or opinion, you can reach us through our email, that is familymmatters@gbskenya.com, or you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And also you can get to watch this very episode on YouTube. So thank you very much. Again, my name is Timothy Omondi. Until next time, goodbye and God bless you.